Hi everyone, and welcome back to the English podcast with Mandy and Mark. I'm Mandy, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mark.
Hello, everyone. We're thrilled to have you here for another exciting episode. Today, we're diving into a topic that's incredibly useful for anyone planning to travel or live in an English-speaking country.
Exactly. We're going to be talking about navigating public transportation. Think buses, trains, subways, you name it. We'll equip you with the vocabulary and phrases you need to get around with ease.
Whether you're asking for directions, purchasing tickets, or understanding announcements, we've got you covered. So stay tuned, and don't forget to practice with us at the end. Your questions and comments are always welcome in the comments section below.
So, Mark, I remember when I first traveled to London, figuring out the tube was a bit overwhelming. What about you? Have you ever had any interesting experiences with public transport in a foreign country?
Oh, absolutely. I was once in Tokyo trying to navigate the train system during rush hour. Let's just say it was a crash course in Japanese train etiquette. I quickly learned that squeezing onto an already packed train is a delicate art.
I can imagine. Speaking of different cultures, have you noticed any differences in how people interact on public transport in different countries?
Definitely. In some places, striking up a conversation with a stranger is quite common, while in others, people tend to keep to themselves. It's fascinating to observe these cultural nuances.
It really is. Now, in terms of practicalities, what are some essential phrases you think our listeners should know when using public transportation?
Well, knowing how to ask for directions is crucial. Phrases like, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to?" or "What's the best way to reach?" are incredibly helpful.
And don't forget about asking about ticket options. Could I get a single ticket too, please? Or do you offer day passes? Are useful when buying tickets.
Right. And sometimes, announcements can be hard to understand. Don't hesitate to ask a fellow passenger, "Excuse me, did that announcement say?" Or, "Could you please tell me what the next stop is?"
Those are all excellent tips, Mark. Another thing I find helpful is utilizing transportation apps. They provide real-time information about routes, schedules, and even delays.
Oh, absolutely. Technology has made navigating public transport so much easier. But it's still essential to have those basic phrases up your sleeve, just in case.
Couldn't agree more. So, before we move on to vocabulary, any last pieces of advice for our listeners?
I'd say be prepared for anything. Public transportation can be unpredictable at times. Have a backup plan, stay calm in unexpected situations, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well said, Mark. It's all part of the adventure, right?
Exactly. Now, shall we delve into some useful vocabulary that our listeners might find handy when using public transport?
Absolutely. Let's do that. I think we should start with. That was a great discussion, Mark. Now, let's dive into some key vocabulary that we used during our chat about public transportation. Remember, understanding these words will boost your confidence when navigating public transport. Mark, why don't you kick us off with our first word?
Sure thing. Our first word is etiquette, which refers to the customary code of polite behavior in a particular setting. When I mentioned Japanese train etiquette, I was referring to the specific rules and norms for behaving politely on trains in Japan, like lining up quietly on the platform.
That's a good one. Next up, we have nuances, which means subtle differences in meaning, expression, or sound. We use it to talk about those small but important distinctions that can make a big difference in understanding a situation, just like those cultural differences we were talking about.
Next, let's talk about single ticket. When you need a ticket for a one-way journey on public transportation, you would ask for a single ticket. For example, one single ticket to the museum, please.
And if you're planning on making multiple journeys throughout the day, a day pass would be a good option. A day pass allows for unlimited travel within a specific area for a 24-hour period. So, when asking, you could say, "Do you offer a day pass for the city center?"
Announcements are another important aspect of public transportation. These are spoken messages played over a loudspeaker to provide information to passengers. They often relay details about upcoming stops, delays, or changes in service.
Right, and sometimes these announcements can be hard to hear clearly. In those cases, you might find yourself experiencing a delay, which is a period of time that something is late or postponed. For instance, there is a 15-minute delay on the Circle line due to a signal failure.
To make sure you're headed in the right direction, it's always good to check the route, which refers to the course or path that a bus, train, or subway takes. Transportation apps often display different route options to help you find the most efficient way to reach your destination.
And along those lines, the schedule is important too. This refers to the timetable or plan that shows the arrival and departure times for buses, trains, or subways. Knowing the schedule helps you plan your journey and avoid any unnecessary waiting around.
Now, let's talk about something that can be a bit frustrating: rush hour. This refers to the periods of the day when public transportation is most crowded, typically in the morning and evening when people are commuting to and from work. If you can, it's often a good idea to avoid traveling during rush hour.
And lastly, let's not forget the importance of having a backup plan. In the context of public transportation, this means having an alternative route or mode of transportation in mind, just in case your original plan falls through due to unforeseen circumstances. All right, now that we've covered some key vocabulary, let's put your listening skills to the test with a few questions about our conversation. Don't hesitate to replay the conversation if you need a refresher. Feel free to share your answers in the comments section below. We'd love to hear from you. Ready for the first question, Mark?
Let's do it. First question: what did I find challenging about using public transportation in Tokyo? Take a moment to think about it before answering.
Okay, next question. What example did I give of a cultural difference related to public transportation?
And here's another one. Besides asking for directions, what other essential phrases did we recommend for using public transportation?
Last question. What are some advantages of using transportation apps when navigating public transportation in an unfamiliar city? So, today we explored the ins and outs of navigating public transportation in an English-speaking country. We covered everything from essential phrases for asking for directions and purchasing tickets to understanding cultural differences and utilizing transportation apps. Remember, practice makes perfect.
Absolutely. The more you expose yourself to the language and the practicalities of using public transport, the more confident you'll become. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're all part of the learning process.
That's all for today's episode. We hope you found it helpful and informative. If you enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more English learning content. Don't forget to leave a comment below telling us about your experiences with public transportation and any tips you might have for our listeners. Until next time, happy learning!